Hey guys, it's the Gundam Boy, and that's right, we're gonna take a look at the ODST Warbond today, so let's get straight into it. So, talking about the armor passive, feet first, it gives you 50% less noise when moving. It also increases the point of interest identification range by 30%, but I think that's kinda weak considering I have eyes. But it also provides immunity to leg injuries. We also have the A35 Recon, which is going to be the closest we'll ever get to a Spartan armor. This is a medium armor set, so sorry light and heavy enjoyers. 50% decrease in being able to hear you is pretty major when you consider I can stalk behind enemy automaton patrols this close without them actually reacting. However, this doesn't stop them from visually seeing you, they just can't hear you stomping behind them in your boots. Which means if you're running around in areas like megacities, this armor set is a perfect option for kinda slinking around without drawing too much attention. And you can't break your legs, but let's move over to our first gun. So first we have the M7S SMG. Taking a look at this weapon's stats, it has 70 damage, capacity of 48, recoil of 8, and a fire rate of 872. It is light armor pen, one-handed, and suppressed, making it one of the first suppressed weapons we got in the game. I don't typically enjoy using SMGs, but this is one of the few that I actually do like, as this gun is really easy to aim and its recoil is practically non-existent, allowing you to make some pretty precise shots. You have the 3 firing modes, full auto, semi, and burst, but you should keep in mind while aiming with this weapon in first person specifically, it's going to be a little hard to go for some shots at longer ranges. But the more unique thing about this weapon is its suppressor. As long as you keep enemies at 35 meters, they cannot hear this gun being fired. However, if you're under 35 meters, all the enemies will hear your gun. This will require you to play this gun a very specific way, as if you get into an engagement with certain enemies, you will not necessarily have the quietest exit. However, if you're already in a fight with an enemy, the suppressor does allow you to pick off those enemy units without alerting nearby patrols, because these guys have no clue that I'm hiding here until I start mag dumping at them. But it is a pretty good option for the bots, specifically in close quarters combat, as this gun's high fire rate lets you just chainsaw enemies to death. Like on the bot front, I find that this SMG performs pretty well going up against the smaller enemy units. However, if you're going in constellations where there's heavy bile spewer numbers, this is the only place I could see the SMG struggle. But I've gotten into some serious firefights with this gun where there's a lot of soft body targets, and the SMG just performs so well. Though it does have a pretty slow reload time, I can't help that just me. The only real enemies this weapon's gonna struggle against is gonna be things that are more armored, like hive guards, bile spewers, and brood commanders. You're gonna have to commit a bit more ammo to killing the higher chaff enemies if you're gonna be using this SMG. But if the chaff is spawning, this gun will have no problem taking them down. Moving over to the illuminate front, the SMG has a pretty good time tracking enemies like overseers. Its low recoil makes it really easy to trace them. However, the bigger meaty balls will survive a bit more shots than you'd like. If you need a flesh mob gone, the SMG is not your answer. When I was using this weapon, I felt pretty good using it against the voteless, as it's a bigger magazine. It lets you actually keep pace with the large numbers of voteless that like to swarm each street. Then we have the M6C SOCOM, which is also rocking a suppressor. Looking at its stats, it is 100 damage, capacity of 12, recoil of 20, and a fire rate of 900. It is light armor pen, one-handed, and it's a suppressed handgun. This is a pretty solid handgun. There's nothing really out of the ordinary that I can really complain about it or, don't like. And it's so fun to look at while it reloads. It also has an integrated laser and a flashlight. When it comes to its suppressor, the handgun has the same range, and the enemies will detect you under 35 meters. Not too much to actually note about this weapon when it comes to using it in combat, as you will probably use this as like any other handgun, just firing it at enemies at point blank. Overall, it handles pretty well, and there's not too much to complain about it. It's a solid handgun, and I think I'll be using it more. Moving over to the MA5C, the assault rifle, it has a damage of 80, a capacity of 32, recoil of 19, fire rate of 640, and medium armor pen. It also gives you 8 magazines, and it also provides a unique first-person perspective that's only allotted to this gun. It also has the compass, just like in the game, which means you could totally do a HUDless dive. It's got your 3 fire modes, auto, semi, and burst, with its main fallback being that its ammo economy can make this gun struggle if you dump a lot of your ammo, as it only has 32 bullets in each magazine, making it a higher ergonomic version of the Adjudicator. And you'll never be afraid of the dark again, as this gun has a flashlight. And since the assault rifle has medium pen rounds built onto this gun, it means you can engage with more varieties of enemies and take them out with relative ease, being a good option for taking on berserkers and devastators especially. With the only thing the assault rifle really struggling with is its ammo economy, as once you start getting into higher firefight engagement, you will start to quickly run through all your magazines. On the bug front, it is completely overkill if you're taking on any of the lesser chaff enemies, as this gun will punch a hole right through them all. The assault rifle is especially good at taking down brood commanders at their head, unless they choose to disappear. But it is a solid option against both the lesser and the greater chaff, with the only thing holding you back being its ammo amount. And the assault rifle performs pretty damn well against overseers on the illuminate side, as this gun in close quarters can just pop their head like nothing, give him the old bag. Then we have the M90A shotgun. with 605 damage, a capacity of 6, recoil of 83, and a fire rate of 80, with light armor pen, and its round reload. It's a fairly simple shotgun, you know, you put in your ammo and you pull the trigger. There's not too much gimmicks to it. And this shotgun's starting ammo is at 44, but the main thing you should note about this shotgun is that it has a pretty low capacity. It also has a pretty good stagger amount on the enemies, allowing you to do easy follow-up shots on enemies like heavy devs. And if the enemies get in point-blank range, this thing can two-shot things like the Devastator in the crotch. And don't ask me why I aimed for the crotch, it was just the first part I saw. My personal experience using this weapon, I'm not too crazy about it on the bot front. I think it's a pretty alright option, but it is a pretty good one on the bugs. As long as you're not dealing with armored targets, this shotgun can punch holes through everything it touches. And since every enemy's massive, the shotgun has no problem hitting its target. Another example of overkill on the lesser chaff, but a pretty good weapon to use against the greater chaff. It's also pretty cool because if you're on an acid planet, I point blanked this dude and took his head in one shot. This shotgun has some pretty beefy damage, and the fact that it's light pen is kinda surprising. If they gave this thing medium pen, it'd probably make every shotgun irrelevant. However, the M90 is a pretty solid option against overseers if they get into close range, as it has a lot of knockback. He was a fairy. Definitely a heavy hitter if you're just shooting something like a Voltless though. It makes me feel bad for firing 8 gauge at this range. Nah, I'm just kidding, who cares? We also got some patterns, but I'm not really gonna go too in-depth about those. My final thoughts about this Warbond is that it's pretty good. I mean, it's alright. It doesn't make me scream or shit my pants in a crazy way, but you know, I think it's a pretty kick-ass Warbond to have in the game. It's not gonna be meta-breaking or shatter the rules of the game, and I think the only reason why it doesn't make me have this big wow factor is if you consider the fact that the weapons we're talking about that came from Halo, that is their standard issue weaponry. There are a dime a dozen in Halo. You'll come across assault rifles on the ground, you could steal them from soldiers next to you. If you're super nitpicky about weapons that don't have unique abilities or stats to them, you're not gonna find that in this Warbond, because these are all standard issue weapons. However, I did play Halo as a kid. I love the fuck out of these guns, and they perform pretty damn well on every front. I can't complain about any of the guns I was using so far. Maybe I'm just a Gundam Glazer, but I don't know. What do you guys think about this weapon personally? And which one would you guys like me to make a more in-depth guide about? Be sure to leave it in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys later.